Hello, everybody, and welcome to the October 8th, 2018 edition of the Ephrom Josine Show. I am your host, Ephrom Josine. Now, Brett Kavanaugh has officially been confirmed by the Senate over the weekend. This is all thanks to Susan Collins, who decided to virtue signal about how much she liked due process, despite the fact she didn't give due process to Al Franken, but Al Franken had a D next to his name. However, there is one man who convinced Susan Collins. I'm just going to read the first couple words of the CNN headline. And I'm going to see if you figure out who it is. Former president. Take a guess which one. Just take a guess. Okay, I'll read the rest. George W. Bush made several calls reassuring Senator Susan Collins about Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. Of course it was George W. Bush. Why wouldn't it be George Bush? The man who single-handedly ruined America for 8 years straight, and who nominated Brett Kavanaugh to a district court, and who one of his best buddies, Karl Rove, is also best buddies with Brett Kavanaugh. And Donnie picked him because, make no mistake, Donald Trump is a Bushite. He is a neoconservative. His cabinet is full of neoconservatives. Both Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch were originally appointed district courts by George W. Bush. John Bolton was UN ambassador under George W. Bush. Now he's National Security Advisor. That Betsy DeVos worked for Bush's re-election campaign. You know, just all of this is common knowledge at this point. And Donald Trump is going out there essentially trying to resurrect the ideology of the president who caused the Great Recession. And this right here, people, is why I can never support Donald Trump. Because when you are following the ideology of people like Ronald Reagan and George W. Bush, you are by default a bad president in my mind. The man who, again, caused the Great Recession that was nearly destroyed the country, nearly bankrupted the entire global economy. But he had an R next to his name. Susan Collins had an R next to her name. Brett Kavanaugh has an R next to his name, so all of it works out in the end. I just can't believe it at this point. Anyway, protests have erupted, of course, in D.C., like they do when basically anything happens. And of course, I saw Charlie Kirk to make sure I had the best takes on this possible. Let's see what you had to say, Charlie. If the conservative base was filled with screeching maniacs that stormed Senate office buildings, interrupt votes, try to pound down the door of the Supreme Court, harass senators, dox conservatives, threaten families, burn the flag, and attack activists, I would reconsider my views. So basically, you just want to be what's popular at the time. Honestly, my favorite is, first off, let's look at a few of these. Harass senators is one I like. Because are we just supposed to ignore the fact the NRA always has on their website when any gun legislation is going to be voted on, so you know when to harass people? Oh, and also, there was Alex Jones harassing Bernie Sanders, but you didn't notice that, did you, Charlie? Burn the Flag's another one I like. I'm gonna borrow a quote from the late Molly Ivins. I'd rather someone burn the flag and wrap themselves up with the Constitution than burn the Constitution and wrap themselves up in the flag. Take a guess which one Charlie Kirk does. Okay, I added that last part. Here's more from Charlie. Breaking! Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh just hired the Supreme Court's first all-women law clerk team. That's called a PR thing, Charlie. And you're using that as proof he isn't sexist. I'm using that as proof that he understands public relations. This is another one. He used a clip with a Breitbart watermark because he's just that kind of person, of some leftists banging at a door. They're barely even doing that, honestly. Most of them are holding up signs. And 2 of them are knocking. Oh no! The senator's dogs might bark loudly in response. Here's what Charlie had to say. Are these the people you want to give back control of Congress? These specific random leftists are running for Congress? Please tell me what district. Dozens of leftist radicals attempt to bang down the door of the Supreme Court after Kavanaugh is sworn in. Oh no. Their dogs might start barking at them. I know, I just did that joke. I knew the left was losing their minds, but I am actually fearful what they might try and do next. Am I the only one who thinks this is going to cause radicalization? Like, you want to talk about... Going on there talking about... I've heard Charlie talk about how we're basically in a second civil war at this point. You really think that's not scaring people and causing them to do irrational things? Or do you just not care, Charlie? But even then, let's compare what the left protests versus what the right protests. The left protests, for instance, off the top of my head, foreign oligarchs undermining democracy, sexual harassers being nominated to the Supreme Court, overturning established Supreme Court presets, and lying to get us into war. What does the right protest? Well, the Tea Party protests were about a decade ago. People who pay the lowest possible tax rate complaining their taxes are too high. Oh, and get the government hands off my Medicare, and the soldiers deserve to die because Obama let the queers in. That was an actual thing they said. Anyway, those are the, if you will, remaining scraps of the Brett Kavanaugh regime. So, finally, we're done with this. I'm Ephrom, and good night.